Hi. Recently I did my first ever challenge run of Dark Souls 3 and it made me curious. Since NPC invaders and other hostile NPCs have always been so strong, I thought, can you beat Dark Souls 3 with only hostile NPC drops? The rules are the following: only hostile NPC drops. Every drop, except rings, can only be used to kill a boss once. For example, if I use the Murakomo as my whole setup to kill a boss, it can no longer be used after I defeated that boss. We cannot in any other way use other items like rings, armor, and spells that does not come from NPCs that are hostile. Those hostile NPCs that count are the ones that start out as hostile, and NPCs that become hostile later on, as long as it's supposed to be that way through the questline, meaning we can't aggro them to get their loot. We also decided that we couldn't use weapon buffs, as some NPCs, for example, does not use it. The exception for this is if they do use weapon buffs, whether we can collect it or not. Because even if they don't drop the buffs, we can still apply the buffs if they did the same. And no summons. I always have this, as it is the intended way of a challenge run and you get to really test yourself. Because we technically can't do the challenge run with the first area having no NPC whatsoever, we have to fist him and do well kinda naked. I wanted the lizard to kill Ludek's Gundyr. I've seen many others do this, but it sounds kinda tedious, not gonna lie. Well, I always welcome souls. Ignoring the AoE Gundyr just performed, I noticed the R2 of my fists are short as hell. Therefore, I made an effort parrying him, then ripostal, and hit R1 throughout the fight. I had to fight him with the patience of a monk on this one, because I died a lot. With the patience game over with, we level up the requirements of the weapon we're about to get. We head straight to the Swordmaster, who is the first hostile NPC of the game. Let him do the thing, and you get the first early game weapon and armor, which literally have no damage absorption whatsoever. Might as well stay naked. Now, the Uchikatana is very optimal for early game, with it having great crowd control and slash damage. But overall, this weapon is kinda mediocre and boring. Even though it does bleed, doing percent damage, it's not likely you'll proc it, with it only having 30 proc damage per hit. A well-accessible Estus shard and the covetous silver ring, which is usually my go-to every time. But sadly, it cannot be equipped. I definitely should have thought of this earlier. Now, all there is to do is to defeat Vort, to then get to the Road of Sacrifice, because our next NPC is there. You're probably thinking that it's going to be an easy fight, which it actually was, because this weapon has decent base damage. Compared to the second phase, it's easier to stay under the belly of the big fella. I thought I was going hollow to ever miss that perfect riposte. Thankfully didn't. A perfect finisher to end this fight, and it earns us our first victory.
You will not find the Lords of Cinder here.
Well, that is to be expected, don't you think? Yoel is our best friend in this game. 5-3 levels, if you just die a few times, this game is built around that. The Mad Woman. The second NPC of this run exists in the Road of Sacrifice, who also start out as hostile, like the Sword Master. Since we now need another weapon for the next boss, we need to go there. Save Cornix and leave Sigurd to deal with the ops. About this NPC, she's an injustice and drops the butcher knife. Never actually used this in times of my playthrough. I'm excited to see how it performs, because it's actually pretty good from what I can tell, with a unique property. HP regain, which is a passive ability meaning every attack gives a tiny bit of HP. The weapon skill, Sharpen, increases the amount of HP regaining from each attack, which sounds kinda good. This chart explains that HP regain that can vary from what your max HP is. Andre and Horus are not ones to kill, because they're docile at the moment. But as I said before, we can do their questline to make them hostile. Compared to my last challenge run, we will patiently wait to strike. Selling is not that optimal, since farming gives you way more souls. But farming isn't that needed right now, so I just do this because, well, I can. With that, we level strength to 17 and vigor to 19. Then upgrade a butcher's knife for our next and last boss fight with this weapon. Freeing Grey Rat for another questline we'll do later on. Saying goodbye to a country hollow. Then we take on the Crystal Sage. Having to stay a little further away to get the right parry can make things tricky, since his melee attack is either the normal version, which you have to stay a little back for, and the magic version, which is the opposite. Interestingly enough, the boss fight was less difficult than anticipated. Well, doing massive bonk damage was kind of funny to experience, especially with the R2. One other trick I saw was the original moves to the furthest point in where you stand, and that the clones are basically randomized, but mostly close to her. So remember the color of the spell she's casting, as the clones are blue and hers are purple. See, I prove my point. It's unfortunate to be so close to finish her off with a last blow. It seems we didn't have any stamina to attack. Anyway, we came out victorious. I decided that we could wait to fight Greatwood for a bad weapon later on, since we only need to pop the X-Axe, meaning any weapon will do the job. But as sad as it sounds, my footage of the boss fight got corrupted. Just so everyone knows, I used the shield for that fight, the barbed shield. We get invaded by Hazel, who drops the sorcery club. Surely makes things interesting, especially in the mid to end game, because it will not be our next weapon. With that said, it's in the middle of everything, in Crucifixion Woods, but we can lure him out, so it's not so bad. My strat for this dangerously strong mage was to do plunge attacks, but also since I had the range advantage. We took some hits in on the NPC, and victory. Wow, a bonus for that one. Now, at the time, I thought even though the weapon had already been used up, I could still use it in between bosses. In the road of the cathedral, there are two hostile NPCs that one of them has a drop. Either way, I killed the one without a drop. Because we're bringing justice to Lordran, are we not? Died once to the axe-wielding NPC, which is not what I imagined how it would end up. After that, I killed the NPC that gives us the spider shield, with the benefit of giving us high resistance to poison. It was so good I ended up using this all the way to the Arendelle DLC. I'll explain later why. The new sorcery weapon requires intelligence, and for that reason will be saved for later into the run. Level intelligence for the staff for some reason. I'm sorry, but with the combination of dealing no damage and having to be ganked was not a wise choice to fight against. So instead, gravity. It's wise. It's wise. Since we are here, we might as well lit 3 flames, so I don't have to do that later. Just after the last flame lit, a Gru Leaper gave me another reason to dislike the Farm Swamp. So much so, I killed him to make things even. Grab a Twinkling at the Farm Bridge, then Hawkwood gives me his raw gem. While collecting some materials, a plunging hollow appeared out of nowhere. Right above me, it seemed. Thankfully, I rolled in time, but damn. Arena is the primary objective here, to then start Morn's questline as well. There's a surge of rage within me, killing him for all the things he did. Truth is, we want Morn to go hostile, to then get his great hammer by killing him. You know? Lit a fire in the cold, progressed through the big church to find the NPC invader, the deacons, and the peculiar doll. Damn. Have some flashbacks with the mimics, then Ember to activate the invasion of the Cathedral of the Deep. While I could just fight him properly, I thought it would be more fun to come up with another strategy for him, and a cheesy one at that. But because also he's a dickhead, and he's pretty stupid. With that said, it earned us the Spiky Arsenal. Now it's time to make Morn vengeful. Simply ask Arena to teach a newly taken tome, level strength to 20, to then start the dark path. Not that dark path. Morn is probably waiting for me now. This hostile NPC is not only tankier and tougher, he's also an unmovable object, meaning if one of his swings hits me, I die. But since I've played some PvP in this game, I know there's this long stun animation in Dark Souls 3 that allows for 2 successful hits in, that is mostly associated with heavy weapons. Probably not a thing in Elden Ring. My solution to this is simply outrange him, strafe and outspace around him, which could not made this more easier than it is right now. With that, we have the second most damage dealing weapon of our run. I also found it funny that his shield that we just got from him can moan. Definitely the more suitable rage bait. The Mourner's Great Hammer is not only visually bigger, but also one of the bigger hitters of the weapon class. Also with a type of Wrath of Gods, with perseverance similar to Volnir's Holy Greatsword, only that you have more hyper armor while performing the weapon skill, making it a better skill. Well, time to face off the Abyss Watchers. Starting off, my choice of weapon this time is the Exiled Greatsword. Almost everyone uses it, and for good reasons. It's fast, has decent scalings, and huge range. Kinda wonder why this weapon deals more damage than a damn Yorm's Great Machete. Well, at least as one-handed. Anyhow, the weapon did so good that I got him on the first try. Despite the lingering flames, the spiked shield was capable of taking the Great Wood out, as you can see in this slot. It's proof. Lock up the Exile Greatsword, then we pick the Bard Straightsword. With it still being in the Straightsword's weapon class, means that it's kinda broken. I used it to get some Titanite scales, also proving my point. But with all of it said, I will be saving it for the future. Send Orbeck to the shrine, what no fool does. And strength is now at 24 points. So what weapon will I use now? Well, there's many options to say the least.
Been following you for a long time. Sign right there.
I'll be using the Great Shield from Knight T to take down another gimme boss. Not that I need to, but I accept a funny challenge. To take the shield from him, it required to simply attack him, and I would not like to do it that way. Instead, let him get balled to death. Wait, what? With that, we acquired a mediocre ring, to say the least. In a normal run, this ring would just waste a valuable talisman slot. Oh, sorry, ring. That said, this ring makes enemies lose 20% more stamina when blocking attacks. But at this state, I just use any ring that I can get my boring fingers on. We might as well grab the undead bone shard from this worm. Fun fact, it is theorized to be Lair, as this area was the lost Isolith just a long time ago. We level up strength. Knight T in human form gives not only the Great Shield, but also a powerful gear. Therefore, I clearly went for it, but not in that way. There's a Black Knight nearby that can assist me in getting that weapon, and the Great Shield. Yeah, we're gonna be using that Great Shield.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
To bash Warner's gigantic skull with. Yay! Interrupting the ballista. So by that tired yay, you probably thought the fight would be as if I were to use a normal sword. Not the case here, as you should know. While it's probably true that it does the same trick, breaking the rings, the stamina consumption and the short range was just unbearable. Not to mention how slow it is. It is pretty noticeable when even Wolnir attacks faster. But I mean, it wasn't really hard or anything, just abyssally tedious. It took 7 minutes to defeat him on the first victorious attempt. Lock off the shield, and look at how many weapons we got now. Use up the boss soul to then level up strength, because it will always be superior to this challenge run, but not so superior to the Hound it seems. Anyhow, we finally decided to target the small doll, which will open up Erythel of the Boreal Valley. In other words, the Deacons of the Deep. While an unupgraded barbed straightsword might not do so much damage, it is by far the best weapon for clearing out a lot of enemies at the same time, meaning it has great crowd control. While low damage can be a disadvantage, being that they spawn, it's not too hard to handle, as long as we keep our distance, and especially from the bigger ones. It's often pretty easy too. A nice opening I found was when they started chanting some kind of status build-up, where I could go in and get some hits and hopefully a bleed proc. We didn't get it of course, because he died too fast. Either way, the curse build-up is far too slow from preventing me to kill them first. They didn't even do anything, because they got interrupted during it. But at some point, I actually had to use the learning skulls, which didn't work at the time. So a weird first try. Now my main target is Horus, who drops the only small shield of this run, which has the more superior parry option compared to barehanded. It will be used up if, as I said, or at least used it in a way that requires a button. Now with that said, we will do the normal questline where Horus goes hollow, meaning he becomes a hostile NPC and drops a small shield. I would consider this a pretty balanced fight. Only thing I wondered was why he was fat rolling. Like, shouldn't he at least invest in endurance with that kind of armor? Wow. This small shield has the famous parry move, so that'll come in clutch later on into the next fight. Now that I'm in the Boreal Valley, I set the sail on hunting every NPC invader in this area. But the first NPC invader, Craigton, has an extra step in which he invades Ceres first. We're gonna help her out. You know, because she's our host. Nah, that's literally so cringe. God damn it, Craigton. You gotta find your own hidden gem. Well, in all seriousness, I want her dad's armor, which we can get by doing her questline. Now we can keep on tracking them down. Starting off, Craigton didn't like what I did earlier, so he set out to invade me. Holy f***, that's real damage. I guess that was to be expected. Yeah, it's clear to me that lightning is the strongest element after all. F it, let gravity deal with you. But he died either way, so that gives us the Dragon Slayer axe. The little kid junior of Dragon Slayer Great Axe. Kinda went the other way in lost senses, but lucky as I am, the last NPC invader awaits here. It was intended to be at least. Okay, come on, it was literally her doing. I was just one guy. With that said, we might use this weapon instead, for Solven that is. Ignoring my zombie walk, we lit the bonfire to Rosaria to reallocate whenever we need to for the weapon that we're gonna kill the boss with. And I'm not sure what to say to this. It's not a drop and I don't really know what to expect. But we used it anyway. Grab a pale tongue for reallocating my stats. So what we are doing here is just getting the requirements for the Murakumo. But this turned out to be the worst decision I've made for the challenge run, because of its restriction of only allowing 5 times of reallocation. I shouldn't have done it for 2 points on Dex, which I literally could have leveled up by myself. Leaving the bad decision behind, we finally take on the NPC invader with the much awaited clause, which actually takes place in the middle of Irithyll. And honestly, he has a great setup. Londor Pale Shade is his name, with him having the dogs and the mages in the area, but with the shortcut, I could sneak up on them and kill whatever environment that surrounds the invader. That said, repulse was pretty much needed to take him down, with me dealing not so much damage normally, since it's only logical that I practice my parrying skills for the upcoming boss fight. Hey, that's dark damage, we can utilize that later. I suppose also humbling him. Some time goes, and with relative ease, Pale Shades to Londor, Land of Hollows. The mannequin claws are much like other claw weapons, except that it is the longest. That's the versatility for this weapon. It gives so much value in close range battles. Other than that, I don't have more to say about the weapon. So again, the choice of weapon for Solven was the Murakumo, paired with a small shield, getting in a lot of riposts. Solven is really fast paced when you really think about it. I know I'm still parrying him, but because I'm not learning the moveset earlier, it still became pretty arduous. The Murakumo is not half too bad, but after Solven, I really got to see how bland it is. But I still look at it as the same in my first playthrough. But looking the way around, it's kinda the dexterity version of the Exalt Greatsword. And it low-key looks better in my opinion. And a second after that, I get comboed to death. So without a doubt, you need a little fine tuning. A nice way of using the R2 is to time the charged attack just after he's done with his phase transition, strategically breaking his back. With the damage we dealt, seemed to make him clone himself even more often. Definitely despise that move. After working my ass off, getting rid of his constant cloning, I finally got to see him fall. Now we're gonna try something new. Say goodbye to the sword and the shield, to then infuse the mannequin claws with fire gem. Little did I know this was gonna suck. Because 1, it doesn't scale with anything, meaning it's like an unupgraded weapon with a little bit of extra fire damage. Level up dexterity and upgrade the weapon. Well, it sounds useless, right? That aside, the Dragon Knight duo are next on the list, with dark damage and a lot of environmental support. Because of the claw's short range, this fight was not nearly possible. Here, with no poise, there was not much I could do. I was clearly out of options. So I had to experiment with weapons to see what would work. The axe was no point in using because it missed the same problem, range, and the fact that any deacon in the area would not just aggro the NPCs when triggered, they would spit fireballs as well. Since they will detect me at such long distance, the final solution became the Great Club. I would say it's the one to get rid of them. That includes you, Silver Knight. Some newly found PTSD, we almost get the double kill. There's only one of them that really counts as a drop. I want to say that since it drags hammers from the hammer guy is collected as loot from the Cathedral of the Deep, not as a drop. But we include them as well, since I want to have a little fun. Hammers aside, it's time to see what we're dealing with on Naughty Aldrich, Devourer of Tasty Gods. Let's see if I was right about the infusion, and alright, looks like I'm gonna be here a while, pretty much. When Aldrich is about to teleport, I try to take control of where he will come back up, since he always teleports from the furthest point in which you stand. You can predict a bit. Additionally, I found when he does this arrow attack, you could simply stand close to him and then circle around him. What this means is that we can trick it into going in the wrong direction. Sometimes it would work. Now, at the time, I didn't really know that it scaled with nothing, so I kinda expected my weapon to deal more damage. But that's why we infused it with a refined gem from the blue Lothric Knight in High Wall of Lothric. Because the Londor Pale Shade could deal dark damage, the NPC that gave us these claws, I thought I could also deal elemental damage by buffing my claws. Okay, just this once. As most people know, his hilt deals the same damage as the spear tip. I guess I deserve that for being this greedy on a boss fight. So by that, we can use charcoal resin. Fire is the boss's weakness. With the resin used, it made me realize how stupid the fire gem is. We literally get the same benefit, but with more damage. I know it's for an early game purpose, but damn. But actually, I'm not that greedy, because the L1 is kind of weird on the class. What happens is that I click once, and despite that, it'll do more hits than what I wanted. Because of that reason, I hit R1, since it deals pretty much the same amount of damage, but the hit speed is a little slower, making it more efficient for this fight. Lock up the claws and level dexterity to 26. Now, leveling dexterity wasn't for damage or anything, it was just to use up our souls, because we will be reallocating again. But essentially, we are just leveling up. But firstly, I would like to lit the bonfire closest to the next boss. While in the area, kill the hostile NPC of Irithil Dungeon. Since we can't wield the hazel pick, our solution is environment, as it can be really helpful at times. At first I thought the monster inside could kill him, but apparently it can't damage the NPC. So that leaves us with the only option, the power of physics, gravity. Don't worry, it's supposed to take time. That gives us the Logan Scroll, which gains us access to the 2 legendary spells that the Big Hat Logan created. But one of them sucked. You'll see in a second. Quick test with the Moon Shield. Now that's a dent of itself. I lied, it's not a dent. Truth is, I never got any stagger, nor any visible damage for the whole 5 minutes. Thus, I gave up and left. With that learned, we finally reallocate. The Soul Spear is not a joke. A powerful sorcery with the perk of piercing multiple enemies compared to the Great Heavy Soul Arrow. But what I put on the line the most is the ability to hit his head, dealing massive poise damage and as well magic damage. Since we literally spammed the heck out of it in the back of the arena, I don't see why we need that many Estus flasks, especially when the spell costs 32 FP in this economy. I will be leaving out 3 red flasks because I have a gut feeling we will need them. And we level Hazel's pick to +3. I definitely feel more comfortable not having to worry too much about mana. Sad to say that relief had to vanish quickly. My attempt as well. This should be guaranteed to take the big brother Yorm down. As they say, the bigger he is, the bigger the fall. My fault, that is. This Superman punch is what caught me off guard, meaning I died a lot. To get the most out of the stance break I did, we paired a soul spear and a riposte with a magic hammer. Kind of. The second phase transition is another opener for the soul spears that already nibbles on the poise meter before he can do anything, meaning that we can quickly break his stance for damage before he starts attacking. You probably saw that divine blessing, and don't get me wrong, that decision was consumed by my desperation, so don't roast me in the comments, because remember, I wasn't paying attention to achieving greatness. Level up intelligence to 38, unequip the soul spear. She did a good job. Then reallocate once again, because our remaining list of bosses are pretty strong against magic. Alright, maybe I was completely untrue to what I said there, but at the time, that was my conclusion. That said, we take on Dancer with the Great Club, as you probably saw me switching to. Honestly, I really thought I could defeat her now, as it is. Dealing 156 damage isn't too bad for him being non-upgraded, nor infused, with us doing not so bad in terms of damage. We also do a lot of poise damage to that statement. But with that said, I just had a gut feeling that I was gonna die a lot here. Since of my first playthrough, that has always been the case. Therefore, we paid a visit to Andre to infuse her weapon with a refined gem, since we're looking at a quality build.
I see that you are now a finger of Rosaria.
Oh, I guess I had this coming. Seems like there will be no Hodrick's armor set. After the loss of the Huss and Hodrick, we fought Dancer properly this time. Dancer, who apparently was literally a dancer, but later comes out as an outrider knight, as we see her right now. The Great Club was my last resort this time, kinda by the fact that I did not want to use the Onyx Blade, since Dancer is weak to dark damage, but that I would instead save it for a boss that is more trivializing. But if I did switch weapons, I would reallocate, since I would hate to grind to get the requirements. With that said, I didn't use the sword, so let's talk about the boss. My brain told me to Onga Bonga on her behind, no more than that. For the second phase transition, I just stayed close by and focused on not being in front of her swinging her swords in that attack. On her last spin, I just rolled into her to get in some hits. Her uppercut swings and the fiery jump attack were two of her relatively many punish windows where I could get in one hit or two. But from my experience, you never know if she's finished attacking or if she will come up with another follow-up, which has always been so unpredictable. One last hit and victory. As I'm starting to get a little anxious to this point in the run, I have to choose wisely on which weapons are saved for future bosses. Open the shortcut because I have doubts about this fight onward. With the Great Club locked away, we choose the weaker weapons primarily from this point forward. Level my dexterity up to 28 and finally upgrade the weapon to +2. No infusions, I don't need it, because we target Osiris now. So any type of lightning will deal more damage than any other type. No, not the axe. Instead we try out the Drank Spears. They scale with mid-tier dexterity, and when buffed by some gold pine resin, it does a little better job at dealing damage. Well, this was lower than I expected. With the +2 drag spears, I begin to see a pattern of paired weapons. But compared to the mannequin claws, it's not all the more fun hitting L2 because the moveset looks good. It actually brings more value, since it's overall faster, and with its crouch attack doing a double thrust, I knew it would be better. But the normal L1 is also nothing to sleep on. An example for this is when Osiris does his missed attack, but his long tail is what brought us value of the fight. And overall, Osiris is actually quite easy to dodge. Well, for the second phase, it's another story. I just played passively on the first phase. Point was to save the Sunny D's for the real challenge. To realize that going ultra aggressive on him is the key to success. Specifically, stay close to him so that he can't dash like a lizard instead of a dragon. This would force him to do the other attacks, like the tail sweep, from when you're behind him. We all know the dash is unpredictable and it's a cheap hitbox. I was this close to getting him on the first try. In the end, it only required a bit of patience and a lot of adrenaline. Because my god, my blood boiled at that moment. After not letting him run as much in the arena, we took the poor bastard out of his misery. With Osiris beaten, it was time to switch to the Drang Spear's brother, the Drang Hammers. Level up dexterity before the fight, and then realized that most hostile NPCs in this run drops their armor somewhere scattered around the game after they get killed. I wish I could have realized that at the time, but it would not count as a drop anyway. The Outlaws set is the only armor I wore in this run, and this NPC named Leonard is on top of my kill list right now. So we are doing his questline: get the red-eyed orb, then talk to Leonard, and let him get more in the bedchamber area. This triggers him to kill Mom and Rosaria, and that leaves us having to put out the hyena. Don't worry, Rosaria, I will avenge you. While the Dragon Slayer's axe is strong, I think I relied on it a bit too much. Since the damage was not there and the range, well, it's no different than Leonard's is. I made myself clear after that death that I needed leverage. The Fume's Ultra Greatsword pretty much gave me that leverage. Funny enough, it was possible to stunlock him. By that I mean every time he got back up, I hit him with a hard thrust. The healing he did would not stop me. Leonard, you know this would not end well for you. You let it come to this. That brought forth justice and earned us his loot. The Crescent Moon Sword is the real goodie here. But with that said, it's time to take on the next boss. But just a moment, do I look good? Be honest.
No.
It's time for a rematch with Gunder, but this time in another locked away world. Our weapon being unupgraded was the better choice. I know saving upgrade materials would be wise. Gunder still hasn't learned that I can just parry him to death with the Drang Hammers. The second phase shows Gunder without the mana pass, and man, it held him back. Sure, I could try something like parrying the phase transition attack with style, but I'm not willing to take that risk. Even though that it's said successful people do that, I'm not. Even though the parrying can overshadow the hammers, I still thought with the damage it did was something really tedious to work around without parrying, and it's crazy how simple something like parrying could solve it. Also, the amount of kickboxing lessons this boss has taken is ominous, but that's how you beat Champion Gunder with an unupgraded weapon. With that, we seal up the Drang Hammers. While in the area, we obtain the secret ending and level dexterity to 33. Man, we're getting closer to the soft cap. Much obliged for the build almost being done. The guy that killed Rosaria for no good reason was part of the plan of using his helmet and weapon for the Dragon Slayer armor. Unequipped armor set because we have used it up on Champion Gunder. Then question what weapon to save or keep while doubting excessively. And also bring Rosaria back to life to then reallocate with only one time left from that point forward. Upgrade the Crescent Moon Sword to +2, and through the path of fiery foes and alike, I grabbed 3 Titanite skills to then take on Dragon Slayer armor. With the long animation and the range of this weapon skill, it seems it was made to be a long range projectile, and I should keep it that way in this fight. Dragon Slayer armor was bearable, honest. Yeah, the damage wasn't spot on, but it did at least show yellow. I have no idea what just happened here. At the last moment, I didn't even dodge. I just thought I could tank the hits, which is questionable. While that was true, the attacks somehow didn't hit me. With that wired in my head, I focused more on attacking and not on dying. And it actually made the fight super fun, with the boss being somewhat fast, and my weapon, it created such flow, it felt like I was truly in a movie. Unfortunately, I did not learn much about playing it safe. With me trying to find every attack window, it was still a workaround fight. Regardless of that, I think this fight was epic. Then we level intelligence and endurance, which I should have invested more in if I really wanted to use the spell for Lordian. The homing soul mass was my second to last sorcery of the run. It was way weaker than its counterpart of Logan, the Soul Sphere. More on that later, because without a staff, we can't cast the spell. Now we compete with the 3 hostile NPCs of Grand Archives, mainly to get the Sage Crystal Staff. Most players would probably fight them individually, one by one, or perhaps if you're a champion, kill them all at once. God damn, they're havoc together. But for me, I kinda went grey here, as instead of fighting them, I let the environment do the work for me. I found out that the elevator to Lorien could gravity kill them. That is if you manage to drop them into the hole. Since they stay in a group, you have to separate them by taking them one by one down the elevator, then send the elevator up so that you can push them into the void.
What do you mean by that?
I of course died trying to do that, but when I finally lured him in, well, I guess I panicked here and died. I can assure you that won't happen again. Alright, now Kunai's turn. I'm sorry lady, but I'm actually doing you a favor by ending your unjustified life. The deed is done and we can scavenge their drops. the staff, equip it, and also the golden wing crest shield, and finally the most wealthy hostile NPC drop of them all, the Onikiri and Ubodashi. Man, honestly, I don't like pronouncing that. It's so cringe. This spell, the Homing Soul Mass, was naturally the worst decision I've ever made to be using against a late game boss. It summons 5 magic balls that performs unprofessionally. Oh really, game? Oh really? 80 AR is less than the staff's melee option. Melee option that shouldn't be a thing. It's just the fact that I put 42 intelligence and wasted a reallocate point for this. Miyazaki is the culprit for doing this, but I found out now that it was made to be a defensive spell, for PvP or PvE I suppose. The fact was written by a deleted account from Reddit. Mana Puss gives 2 large Titanite, and the dragon gives 2 chunkies and an amber. Then we allot Estus because we need them Geterays and Sunny D's. That's right, it's time for the twin princes.
Another dogged contender.
The sorcery buff is about 30% of extra AR, but 2 magic projectiles is what sometimes only hit Lorien, which is not enough. We need more, since both me and the boss moves around sideways, and pretty much any movement that misdirects the sorcery. Can't blame the camera on this one. Then after some attempts, get it to +4, to then Elliot more blue because I want to give the Homing Soul Mass one last try. This is the time I actually realized how less trivial it got when using the melee option. But at the same attempt, I just knew there was no point in casting. The interesting part is that the steady chant also buffs the stick by itself, meaning hitting Lorien with the stick would be the damage of the staff plus a 10% AR buff, not 30%. It would break the game. Therefore, we bonked with the staff, even though, yes, it does nearly half of the damage of the Homing Soul Mass. Being able to hit it multiple times with almost no stamina consumption makes it way better. Also, with that in mind, we don't need more FP than what we get from start. So it's best to pull it all on Sunny D's. I am starting to regret for not looking up what the Homing Soul Mass was for before I reallocated, since everyone said that the Crystal Homing Soul Mass was better after looking it up because I thought it would perform in similar ways, just a bit weaker, which it was. Finally, at the second phase, my expectations at the start of this run said that it would be fine. Sadly, that was not the case. And another thing is that the stick can hit both brothers if standing at the right position. And after 11 minutes of hitting them in that way with the stick, I successfully killed the twin princes. Now that I know a stick can outdamage a spell, we are heading straight to Rosaria to revive her, and just then I remembered. I thought we had 2 chances left of reallocating. Well, we did not, and we'll put 40 on each, and then also prepare some investment to Inten Faith. This way we can use strength and dexterity weapons with ease, quality weapons if you're fancy, to then later focus on Onyx Blade and the Pyromancy is a skill with part magic. Seems like I will become a grub, if ever reallocating from now on. I want to test Onikiri and Obodashi for the sister Elfrida, therefore we upgrade it to +9. We are not really showcasing it if we aren't putting effort to it. Then we level up dexterity and strength, talk to this soon-to-be hostile NPC with an immaculate voice.
No bell tolls.
And finally decide, oh, now we can't use the armor. Well, that was my logic back then. Since we wore Leonard's hat the whole time, it was time to take it off. There's still a lot of armor we can equip, and I had a spare piece of the Outlaws set. The helmet was still unused, and so why not use that? After only being in the DLC for a few minutes, Wilhelm has already turned on me. That makes him a hostile NPC. My plan was to lure him to the cliff to then smack him with a spider shield, to possibly let gravity kill him. No. I'm sure I deserved that instant karma, but it worked out just fine and I obtained the Onyx Blade, which I considered to be the weapon I did the most dirty of the run. More on that later. That aside, I turned the wheel to then piss off Sister Elfrida. She is after all a fast-paced boss, and one of the hardest in the game. That's why it made sense to me to use this paired katana. When she does her grabbing scythe attack, I simply backstab her since the animation was slow, and the weapon thrived against the scythe. Since the L1 running attack is a thrust attack, it was effective at outspacing her attack, and overall, backstabbing was her weakness through the whole fight. The one thing I had to learn was that her follow-up, doing a swing, would always leap further than I imagined it. That was incredibly unpredictable for me at the time. But what I did was roll into her, and that was the solution. And on her frost attack, I should double roll to get the backstab. If phase 2 was in the first phase, it would make it less tedious, since we would be killing Ariandel in the beginning of the fight, leaving us to be able to focus on Fried alone, because he's easily bled and just a slow and simple boss. Since Fried shoots out frost on the floor, I had to run around it through the second phase to avoid it, and also Ariandel with his charge attacks. The only time I would attack Fried was when she would heal her and her father. I would also do my best to separate them in the arena, so that they wouldn't attack at the same time. Now, the third phase was a cakewalk to my surprise. I only screwed up the black flame jump attack and other minor attacks. That's me saying it after my last run, where I kinda stayed here for hours. In the end, I found out that the leap itself does a small stun attack that also has incredible hyper armor, killing the boss faster. Miyazaki is once again a real one. But with Barefoot Free dealt with, I truly love the katanas in the fight. I'll give it 11 out of 10. Level of faith for the greatsword we're just about to use. And say hello to Unbreakable Patches, he's hella mischievous. And Kirk's armor has a unique perk of dealing damage while rolling. Even though that was something I was supposed to kill a boss with, there were still some weapons left that can be used instead to kill the last bosses. That said, I'm not Scumnut. Moving on, Patches is supposed to get hostile by the time Guyra dies, or I don't know. But the weird thing is how he doesn't. I'm like, that's odd. With that said, I went to the Archdragon Peak to be met by the Ancient Wyvern. Nah, there's no way I would waste the fumes of the greatsword for this, and any weapon for that matter. It's not like he's a boss anyway. Now I'm looking for something different, like a spear, for another reason very soon. Therefore I decided, yeah. Since Patches here didn't want to save Guyra, I count him as a hostile NPC. That means he fits the code. To aggro Patches without directly hitting him with a weapon, I put the exception of Cook's armor, being able to aggro him. This is just a one-time thing. I mean, I'm technically not doing it on purpose in that case. I won't break the rule, right? Right, guys. Right.
Why me?
You should have shielded him, otherwise I would have not killed you. I'm not supposed to kill you yet. Why are you here, Rock? Well, this is more like your spot. The Fume Salted Greatsword is a great weapon for this fight. It has range, knockback potential, but in this state it's kinda lackluster in damage and consumes a lot of stamina. The spear will, by all means, be a safe bet for this fight, but it won't hurt to test something else.
Hey!
Just make him more aggro on you and then lure him to the ladder. Yeah, simple as that. This extra aggro effect did nothing. I naturally died many times doing it. The 2-shot combo was inevitable in this case, and fuck me, this was scary. The Rapier champion, the guy that killed me, can only be killed if he gets summoned. He's pretty easy to kill once you learn that he relies on the weapon skill. With that, we earn the same weapon and skill, a strikingly decorated rapier of an undead prince spoken of in ancient stories. This rapier is short range, but is more known for its weapon art. It has survived all the way from Dark Souls 1, and the weapon art description follows. Assume a quick stance, lunge forward and execute a stunning chain attack. Sustain offensive with strong attacks. Anyway, I will kill you once I find a way. Not now though. Now I just did something else to make progress. Then proceed to dance with the Grave Tender to see if I could actually do decent damage. But of course my stamina was a problem, and this weapon relies on that mostly. Truth is, I know the boss is strong against smaller weapons, and because of that it would make more sense to use the Fume Salted Greatsword here. And this one definitely hurts, as this fight has no honor. You get what I mean. The Champion's Grave Tender is an annoying fight. It's not as fun as you would think, but it is a nice addition to be able to break his stance. I wouldn't say that was possible until now, because of the boss's weapon, named the Valorheart, can block attacks while the user performs his own. The whole moveset almost consists of that actually, with the exception of the Shield Bash from the skill. The unique trait of the weapon was, in my luck, an advantage, but them combined was a lethal combo. With it consuming a lot of stamina, and my weapon being a hunk of metal, it would just cut through his stamina. This in fact made the champion a cakewalk. as well as the Great Wolf, with it being nothing particularly hard, if it's left alone that is. With that said, I just needed one riposte, to not even having to see his second phase, secure my victory, block up the Fumes Altar Greatsword, and hard to say, the Valorheart did come from a humanoid boss, so it could have been usable. Well, in the end, I just choose not to use it. Level up Faith with the boss's soul. To finish up the first DLC, we face off with the NPC invader of this area. I immediately noticed that I should have used the Fumes Altar Greatsword before the boss fight. Because of that, I picked the Dragon Slayer axe to kill him, but it seems like gravity was faster at doing that, earning me the Floating Chaos Pyromancy. Then I decided it was finally time once again to try to defeat Havel. The spear did, yes, outrange him, but maybe not, I can't really tell. I thought the extra range from the winged spear would make the fight easier. No, not really. I was just testing things out to find the weak points. But the big dog is clearly invincible. And there was but one thing in mind: cheese. To try and defeating Havel. Backstabbing him is not the same as in Dark Souls 1. Luckily, I finally got him to fall down. Not me with him this time, only him alone, and that finally earned me everything he was using. The Dragon Tooth, Havel's Great Shield, and a separate drop of his armor. Now, the Dragon Tooth was extremely strong in this run, and I hard pinned Havel just for the weapon. Well, at first. Now we upgrade the Tooth of our Dragon to +3. Didn't need much more than that because the weapon was already strong. Because his weapon class circles around a lot of poise damage, strike damage, and a big number of units. So it's already a no-brainer for the Nameless King. Fight with that they easily poise break. Also, it just happens, I after a run realized this was a buffable special weapon. Well, that's great. Then call upon the actual boss of Archdragon Peak. Him because he's nameless, yet a king. So with a +3 Dragon Tooth, I was not expecting to do this much damage. But usually heavier weapons have higher base damage from what I can tell. Despite the camera angle being the actual boss in the first phase, I still delivered some heavy blows in hopes of getting a stagger, but I ended up just bonking him with no other thing in mind. With the camera boss gone with, we enter the second phase of the actual boss fight. This time I had a better experience, with me and the boss creating a nice flow, which is what I like about a good RNG. I kept in mind to not overdo myself. Getting greedy would mean an instant death call. Despite the 2-shot scenario of the Nameless King, I was still thriving, blocking him effortlessly. I also giggled when the posture break happened. Since he has no armor, meaning he has no poise really, I could easily stun and riposte him. Everything was going well in this fight. I just had to tactically use my stamina well, and perfectly time when I could get a hit in. With the last riposte and the last swing, we ended up victorious to the Dragon Lover. With the Nameless King dead, I face off with another foe from the Man-Serpent Summoner. This one was not so aggressive compared to the other one. After giving him the worst back pain ever, I acquired the Drakeblood's Greatsword, one weapon that perfectly fits to a later boss's weaknesses. Then lock up the Tooth and level intelligence a bit more. The Onyx Blade should be on a power build to really do a lot of damage. Since the weapon skill Black Flame adds fire and extra dark damage, my mistake was to use this weapon to the next DLC's first boss fight. We should have used something else because of that. As the Demon Prince is resistant to that, he's made of fire, what the level it to +2 and then trade for materials. Kill this Obliviation of FromSoft to get extra materials. Speaking of Oblivion, FromSoft, what have I done to deserve this? Gravity is always a safe bet that gives us the Flame Fan, a slapping tool of sorts. This boss was also a slap to the face, none other than the Demon Prince. The Onyx Blade. I should have used it on a low HP boss instead, like on the old Demon King or just someone with those weaknesses. I mean, the problem wasn't really the dark damage, they're actually weak to that. No shit, it was the added fire damage from the weapon skill. It at least felt like so. Maybe I'm just delusional, but I definitely did not do damage. But that aside, we didn't have to learn a lot about this boss fight, at least in the second phase. This time I would actually look back at my mistakes and actually go for the Demon of Pain and kill the demon from below secondly. Unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that never really learned the first phase as much as I normally speedrun the fight. After dying a couple of times, I figured maxing the weapon out was mandatory if we want to win. Now the damage was at least leaking his health bar, to the point where I can actually get to the second phase. Even if they would sometimes give some breathing room, it would later on become a breath room. Get it? Because sometime into this very tedious fight, I eventually succumbed to the toxic damage, which meant 1 or 2 Estus down the drain, but that mistake was taken care of as I later on brought white-purple moss. With or without moss, I just hoped for a good RNG to quickly kill these Once I eventually did that, it became far more trivializing. Entering the second phase was a pain reliever, and getting hits from his back made for a safer strategy, since the only rotation attack he has is a fire slam. This one is easy to dodge, but something that was not was kind of a frame trap attack. You see, his laser beam attack shoots out lava on the ground wherever the beam travels. I did not know that until I died to it. Rolling into it was not a good idea. Kill the duo again to then get my victorious attempt at killing the Demon Prince. I don't remember if I knew at the time that the weapon skill made the weapon worse. But the point is, I did not use it in the second phase as much. Wow, maybe the rotation attack was underestimated. Honestly, I just fought in front of him to avoid those heavy dealing attacks. The jump blast was also one of those attacks that I just hoped he would not perform, since I again usually speedrun this boss fight without learning a damn. More on the laser beam attack being the best window to dealing a lot of damage. It also builds up a lot on the poise meter, meaning a riposte was yet to come. My newly made solution to taking no damage from the jump blast he usually did now was to roll under him or through him to get behind his arms. That's the spot where you can avoid the hitbox, as it is in front of his arms. But rolling to the side is not bad either. After a sadly attempted weapon skill finish, I put the prince and his faded flame down. Speaking of flame, we level up to soul level 90, while also getting the minimum requirements for both pyromancies of the run, which would have been changed if I just could have reallocated. The Pyromancer Flame and the Parting Flame are both good in their ways, with Parting Flame dealing an explosive fire attack while casting spells, making it better in a close melee range. But I knew both were fine, so I just went with the normal one, upgrading it to the max to then test the spells out. The Floating Chaos is a mid to long range spell that summons a Chaos Ball, that summons 3 Chaos Balls, with the hit speed being just the same of all of them. Technically you can stack the spells, but the short duration and the slow casting speed of it wasn't any way optimal. Our other pyromancy spell was definitely a better option, and something I should have invested more in. I'll explain why in a bit. The flame fan is a slapping tool, not just for deflecting arrows, but the enemies themselves, especially the humanoids. What I mean by that is that the spell has a unique property, is that it can stagger those with legs, of course, since it reminds a lot of the infamous kick effect. This was incredibly broken, as it could stun lock enemies if you cast it continuously. I wish I could have used it more on the run and invested more in it. After going all the way to the streets of the city, we meet up with one of the last invaders of this run, Alva, who is apparently called Seeker of the Spurn now. Before this run, I didn't even know they were the same person. This invader was built like a tank, and I wasn't. Therefore, I died. Until I learned a skill to kill him. It was of course its stagger perk. Literally a cheesy pyromancy that could have been way more strong. I just didn't have the optimal leveling to do that. Since I couldn't reallocate anymore, another low effort fact is that this spell can be used through walls. But since its range isn't gully, it was probably best to stick to the other unique perk. Anyway, we showed him who's boss and earned a ring that is even worse from the ones we have now. I take what I can get. But what I couldn't take was the next invader's life. This one was a tankier invader and an odd silver knight that was practically impossible to kill. Every time I would punish his attacks, or just attacking, would instantly bring death to me if he ever swung his hammer at the same time. Because in Dark Souls, there's this tank mechanic where you won't be interrupted when attacking from any type of attack. It's better called hyper armor. To make things more annoying, Dark Souls 3 has another mechanic separate from the other games, where if you hit somebody, you'll likely be able to execute another one, because the affected gets stun locked at that moment. Normally, like in Elden Ring, you could roll out of an attack without getting stunned for too long. Okay, yep, session done. I thought of gravity killing this guy at first, but after some attempts, I realized that isn't possible. Maybe a little, but this fight was already tedious enough.
Wow, man.
That's why I switched to the Dragon Slayer axe, and victory. I switched back to the Pyromancy, and now there's just one to go that remain on our list. The Moaning Knight is probably everyone's least loved invader, as he invades in the literally worst area imaginable. First off, this area has so many skeletons. I just punched them to death, but that was still an annoyance to me, because I died to that. But this guy could thankfully die to gravity with ease. For me, he's even less loved by the fact that he only gives a party mask, which is in the addition more useless as it buffs up dark damage. This is me realizing that after using the Onyx Blade. Shockingly, yes, Midir was actually kind of easy. It might strike you as obvious because I saved the Dragon Slayer axe for the dragon and say hello to this foolish fight. Flame Fan was still not the fastest attack on the Painted Guardians of this fight, since they light roll and also count this spell as a projectile, kind of fooling them in the process. The only small chance of even getting a hit would be roll catching them or just cast it just as they are about to attack you. I definitely saw the potential though of using it on the boss itself. Well, unfortunately, I can't bear to face them both without killing the other. The Guardians are for sure the most frustrating part of the fight. I had to switch setup just for that matter. Level up the weapon, the Drake Blood Greatsword to +2, and then buy a Titanite Slab. Despite the missed backstab, I knew this would be the most consistent weapon for this fight. Since Half-Light's weakness is lightning and frost, basically magic, I was confident that we would win. It was also less difficult to roll catch them. I really had to focus up when they started healing themselves, but I didn't mind this one, because we haven't dealt damage yet to the actual boss. But it was still a losing attempt, and I decided to upgrade the weapon a bit more, with uncollected materials from the Fran Bridge, and holy crap, this is where Havel's armor is. +2 Greatsword felt enough to defeat Half-Light. And finally, the fun part begins. In the beginning of the fight, you can consistently get a backstab on both of the Painted Guardians. Just wait for the purple ring to disappear to time it right. Once she was down, we had our first embarrassing moment of trying to parry Half-Light, but it soon came to be really rewarding, getting that riposte. Now that the second Guardian is gone, you can finally shut down this preposterous boss fight. Just make sure not to get close to him. He has infinite focus points, meaning he can one-shot us if we're not careful. But I've played some PvP in my time, so I knew that I could roll catch him. Also, it's guaranteed to attack him when he uses his bow, as well as when he does the vertical slash attack. But that was a gamble of hit or miss, because sometimes he would retaliate with the other slashing moves of the weapon's skill. I also got to taste of my own medicine near the end, but we ended up victorious despite that. The moment I touch a girl for the first time. Shira is an NPC invader, but in my eyes, it seems like she's in human form, so I recall her as an hostile NPC. The NPC was incredibly punishable, with me cornering her against the wall and the weapon did not bounce back, so this is why this was so low effort. Why she didn't retaliate might have been because she had no poise, not being able to attack without her being interrupted by me. She would just drink her Estus till she couldn't heal back from my heavy blows anymore. At least she fought back once. There was a sense of injustice around her. Needless to say, I earned a powerful weapon that could have been more used. But I already made up my mind about using 2 of the untouched great hammers we still had in our inventory. Level up strength because every other stat wasn't needed. The strength was for the weapons. Upgraded Morn's great hammer to +5 to then take on the purple edgy dragon Midir. Again, the choice of weapon was the Dragon Slayer axe. I picked it for a good reason, with it dealing parts of lightning damage and huge physical damage, which Midir is the least resistant to. Some attacks were hard to see and I got hit without even knowing how it did. I ended up dying 2 times, as both of those 2 attempts I got one-shotted. Yeah, twice in a row. Midir has some large openings, for example the laser attack and his cute fire breath attack while standing upright. They wouldn't always guarantee 3 hits, but it still caused damage without getting hit. His breath attack can be easily avoided by hanging to the right side, but compared to the other breath attack, this one was more likely to hit me. But upon realizing that, I just rolled to avoid that completely. I did as well get one-shotted by the special humanity attack, which I never see him do, because there's only 2 types of humanity attacks you can do. There's the normal attack where he roars and then summons humanities. The other one is way more rare and more devastating, devastating, especially on the first attempt where I mistakenly just healed when it happened. I had no stamina left to roll from the attack, but from my overall perspective, this boss fight was not too easy but not hard either. I would say it's greatly exaggerated. I normally got hit by normal attacks that I would normally dodge throughout the whole fight. That said, midair took 3 tries to beat. Lock up the Dragon Slayer axe. Now you will be truly tested. The Morn's Great Hammer requires 50 strength and 30 faith, so I locked in faith since you can just two-hand it for the strength requirement. Now I have the Crucifix of the Mad King in my hands, and it might have been the most overlooked weapon of the run. It is unfortunate. We forgot about the old Demon King of all bosses, and it's a no-brainer to face him with the Crucifix of the Mad King, as we could get some cash, in hopes of leveling at least 1 point. The old Demon King is weak to dark, and so I allowed myself to use it at least once in this fight. I definitely should have maxed out the weapon, not only to see how strong it is, but also to kill this boss faster. I did not expect to fight him like if I was in the early game. He was not having it. Knowing to himself that he was abandoned for so long, he fought with everything he had, including the very annoying lava balls attack that flew to me. But it was fine. I dodged all the way, simply by standing behind a pile of his dead demonic bodies. Well, that's about it for this fight. The king, consumed by his demons, gets defeated. Naturally, I forgot the blindfold mask that would have increased the damage. I knew there was something missing. Now about Gale. He's the final boss of this DLC, and he will face our Morn's Great Hammer. But the stat requirement was top priority for when I tried to level up from the recent kills and the old Demon King. Also the reason I killed the early game boss. I was tempted to use Lord Miyazaki's powers, but I thought grinding would be the wiser choice in this case, because this run must be possible for anyone to do without cheat engine, etc. Nevertheless, we can now wield this great hammer of rock, and it's kind of one of those weapons that makes them unappreciated by the requirements it gives. But investing in this weapon is actually kind of worth it. That's what I hope at least. Let's see if Orbi can take it. Oh, no, he's dead. That aside, it was time to face the cannibalistic Santa Claus. My soul level is 97 at this point, and my stats for this DLC boss is 25 vigor, 30 endurance, 41 strength, 40 dexterity, and intelligence at 16, and faith at level 30. Gale is honestly not the best boss fight to test something like a Morn's Great Hammer into. He's one of the 2 bosses that has 3 phases, and is fast paced like the other boss, meaning that even if I do poise damage and sometimes stagger him, it's still hard to land less or more than 1 hit before taking damage yourself, since the recovery animation is slow. But that didn't say I did a lot of damage. The hammer contributes gladly. Despite the teleportation he could do after the first phase, I could in the same way stagger him in 3 consecutive hits, even in the final phase. And the fact that his recovery was more slow compared to the other bosses, it made it possible to get another hit in, but it wasn't always safe to do. I would also strafe multiple attacks of his, like this one shown to get a safe hit in, without the risk of getting caught in his attack. In the first attempt, there was one attack that almost killed me. Truth is, my controller did not register to the game at the time, so that got me pissed off. Needless to say, I died rolling too early in a moment of stress. But the second attempt went a lot better, and so became my victorious attempt, earning me my triumph. Unequip the setup and lock it all up behind bars. Now we have one last resort of a setup, turning me into the Rock. And I say so not only because of the armor looking like stone, but when equipping the heaviest weapon in the game, I also weigh like a big rock. But rocks can roll in circumstances, and I cannot. I'm obviously overloaded. But with that, it was time to truly upgrade one last time and to level up. Almost there now, just slowly getting to the boss arena. Solo Cinder will not penetrate the rock. Hell no, Havel would be proud. Oh yeah, we have Estus. Okay, why didn't I heal? To my realization of Havel not being impenetrable, I knew it was best to take the armor off. Now the Solo Cinder is just like Gale, still poise broken, but also can attack and react with haste. But that aside, he has way less health compared to Gale. Point is not get interrupted while doing a charged R2. The advantage of this fight is how the ground was designed, thanks to Miyazaki, meaning that I would sometimes duck his swings. I love you, Miyazaki. His magic transition is probably the easiest form to fight, which given to a melee character is great. Always run away from his combo attack in the second phase. Don't play like my horrible ass. Please don't. After getting hit with Gwyn's lightning, I took some last hits and that's it. You can beat Dark Souls 3 with only hostile NPC drops. This challenge run has been really fun and has really showed me how powerful NPCs in this game can be. With that said, I wish I restricted this run a little further to see what could have been possible, like no Estus and stuff that literally does not come from hostile NPCs. Subscribe to get more videos like these.